right, we are off on a Wednesday. What another great day to be with you all here tonight. Back in the saddle. We were here with you on Monday for the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. Let's call it grand reopening in 2026 with Rust Belt Rundown. And here we are again tonight. First Gem City Sports Podcast of the quote new year. We're not there yet. We're almost there. On this evening before the new year. Happy New Year to all of you. Happy 2026. This is, of course, our last show in 2025. So glad to be with all of you. However you may be watching us tonight, thanks again for being a part of our show each and every single day. Of course, if you missed it, we have our new schedule out for the winter. We're going to keep Rust Belt Rundown going. Stay tuned. The Draft Podcast with Paul Adamczyk is in the works for season number 2. That's coming up in just a little bit. We'll have more details on that. And, oh, by the way, Off the Record continues. I don't know if you saw, but the Otters got a big win against Brantford yesterday, one of the top teams in the league, so we can't wait to see what they do down the stretch of the season. Trevor Kubea, players, coaches, and staff talking Off the Record throughout the entire year as we move through the months of January, February, and March. But again, good to be with you. It's finally high school basketball talk time. We got through the high school football season. It was a lot of chaos, a lot of craziness, a lot of excitement. Now we're finally into the hoop season, and we got someone in just a moment that's no better than no one else is better to talk high school hoops and to break things down than this man. First of all, though, our show is always brought to you by Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more info, it's easy. Go to the website, give them a call, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can call their phone number, 814-734-3433 during normal business hours, 814-734-3433. Well, they always say that coaches are of a different blood. They eat, breathe, and sleep what sport they absolutely love to do. And even coaches who, quote-unquote, step away from a team seem to just generate more responsibilities for themselves. And nobody better to talk about that than Tom Koval, who is back on the program to kick off 2026 as we start our basketball talks on this pod. We evidently were nice enough to him, and he felt like he was good to come back this year. So we did something right, Tom. But, man, I don't know. I feel like you left Erie a couple years ago, and all you've done is made it busier for yourself.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Kids keep you busy. I'm coaching the 5th grade team for my son at Fairview this winter, and I coached my daughter's 7th and 8th grade team with both Rand and Aaron Garrity for middle school basketball in the fall. And I'm really enjoying my time. I still get to coach basketball, and it's a lot more time with my kids. So I'm loving every second of it.
Is it different coaching that level? I mean, I know we talked about it a bit last year, but is there anything different that goes into that development stage than when you're coaching varsity boys, varsity girls?
In my opinion, it's completely different, right? You're really focusing on fundamentals. You really want to focus on emotion offense and man-to-man defense, even though there's so many coaches and teams that play zone at a young age, which is heartbreaking to me. But we really footwork and using your opposite hands to dribble, really try to work on shooting form and stay away from the 3-pointers as long as we can. So they don't try to shoot shots that they're not strong enough to shoot yet.
Is that something you can convince them to do? I don't feel like that's possible in today's day and age.
I'll tell you what it is. If you give you tell them why they shouldn't do it. They don't want to disappoint their coach. So as long as you're doing the right thing, I think you get good buy-in, and it's been good so far.
Yeah, interesting. I was just curious. Again, we see defense is making a little bit more of a comeback now in the NBA and things like that. But it's good to hear kids still buy into what their coaches are telling them. Maybe that means defense will be at least somewhat still prevalent when we get into the shot clock era. And in future episodes, I want to ask you on the shot clock because that's kind of where we left last year. But, of course, that's coming to high school too. So much to get into, my friend. But, at the time of this recording, we're recording this on Tuesday night, getting ready for Wednesday. Tom, I want to start on the girls' side of girls' basketball because we have had on both sides already some teams that have clearly established themselves as contenders, not just in the district tournament, but the state tournament. But you just came from Fairview and watched what I think could be an early telltale sign of the state frontrunners in their respective classifications with Fairview and Seneca. Tigers get the win 55-43, was back and forth in the first half. First, your thoughts on the game, and then I want to propose a question to you as we get into the girls' basketball talk, because that was a big one at the Fairview Holiday Tournament between two really good powerhouses.
I thought it was, right? I mean, I think Seneca is going to cause a lot of trouble in that 3A classification. It was a battle of two different styles. Seneca had some really good size. Obviously, there's some really good guard play
Yeah.
for Fairview as well. So it was a really good battle. I loved each quarter was kind of a part of the game. Fairview started off with a really big lead. They ended up the quarter 19-11, so a ton of scoring in that first quarter, and scored 3 points in the second quarter. So it became a ball game. Third quarter was tough, and Fairview really stepped up in the fourth. I think they held Seneca to 3 points in that fourth quarter. They shot and made 6 threes in the second half, so they really shot it well the second half to kind of pull away from the Bobcats and Coach Carter there.
Yeah, and first of all, for Seneca, Coach Carter getting a milestone victory just recently. We've seen, of course, Coach Garrity do it so well for Fairview. And, though these two teams don't necessarily have to worry about postseason matchups, it is important for them to play these early season games. And the Fairview Holiday Tournament, I'd argue, at least locally, is one of the bigger holiday tournaments around the Christmas holiday, and really gives a lot of teams good competition. So as we get into this, Tom, it's a big win for Fairview because they beat a team in Seneca that had only come into this game losing one previous. And we're going to talk about both these teams in depth throughout the entirety of the year. But I look at District 10, and I'm gonna preface this with Erie County because I think Kennedy Catholic could be in the state championship game every single year and nobody would bat an eye on the girls' side. But the question I propose to you tonight is, with the two teams we just saw on the floor, and knowing that Fairview is coming in as they typically are, them and Harbor Creek are essentially the front runners in their region and their classification. And Seneca is going to go to battle with Northwestern to see who essentially comes out of their class and goes to states, at least as the top seed. Did we just witness the two Erie County teams play each other tonight that will go the furthest in states? An early question to you, Tom, given that it's early, I get it, we're 10 games in, but these two, to me, are clear early front runners amongst a small group to make a big run in states.
Well, I think if you start with Fairview first, their culture and the history of their program makes you believe that for sure. They got a great point guard with Paige Garrity, another great guard with Ella Pizzo, but they're young, right? They have a lot of players this year that have to kind of get comfortable with new roles and be able to score. So I don't want to say too much and put the cart in front of the horse, as Coach Smock from Harbor Creek would say. But I think there's a lot of potential there, and they just got to grow into it. I think they're going to be fine. The Garrity's really get that program going towards the end of the season. Those girls will find comfort in their roles. Watching Seneca, they're a dangerous team because they're so experienced, right? They brought a lot back, and it's so much easier early games at the beginning of the year when you have that experience of who played together to see how things go. I actually talked to a lot of coaches at the tournament tonight. Coach Sarwin from Northwestern was there because their JV team was playing. And he had some of the same things to say. He's got a couple really good experienced players, but he's got some young ones coming in, and we'll have to see how they develop. And they will, right? It's kind of nice to see a kid that maybe only played a few minutes last year and was, making extra passes and playing a lot of defense. And this year, now we need him to score a little bit, something that's different that they need to get comfortable with. So it's real exciting to see how they'll develop through the midwinter season here.
I always want to joke with Coach Garrity, Tom, because you made a really interesting point at the beginning that Fairview's so young. I feel like we've been saying this for 10 straight years. Why are there always just freshmen and sophomore on this team that find ways to win and find ways to be successful? It is the scheme. I get it. They're such a great defensive team. And I think early in the year, what really struck me was the Northwestern win, right? In the fact that last year, early in the season, Michaela Presser-Palmer pretty much single-handedly beat that team. It was one of Fairview's only losses in the entire season last year. They end up playing great defense. They hold MPP, 29 points in total for the game. They win that one. And now they've won 4 straight games after a tough loss to McDowell that really a game they could have won too. Was a 3-point game there at the end. And I think the most fascinating thing for Fairview, as you mentioned from tonight, is they have guards that can really shoot the ball. And they've had scores, but I don't know, Tom, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's really been since the Hope Garrity days a few years back that they had multiple guards that they trusted to shoot the ball from deep. And I would argue, at least maybe to an extent, that between Paige, who is obviously a lights-out shooter, and Pizzo, who can really float it around, they have 2 pretty dynamic shooting guards, and that's going to make them dangerous moving forward in the season.
It definitely is, and they got the other pieces are great for them too. I really love the Lockett girl. athletic, gets rebounds, can drive to the rim, so she gives a little dynamic to them. Grace Januso, who's a heck of an athlete, she's a pretty good soccer player. She hit a big three in the second half for Fairview today. And the Tessa Trudnowski is another strong guard for them. So they have some good young players. When I say young, right, they haven't played a lot from last year. As they become these great veterans and getting more time under their belt, it's going to just make that team better and better.
Based on what we talk about, Fairview seems to be the program that's made the most state tournament appearances with the fewest number of seniors. At least that's what it feels like, because Coach Garrity just has a pipeline that's 1.5 miles long, and they're going to be a tough out, no doubt, in 4A. I think, it's going to come down to them in Harbor Creek. We saw how awesome the tournament was last year, and the Huskies ended up getting the better of them down the stretch in the postseason, but that's going to be another great run. Harbor Creek sitting at 6-1. Fairview now with an 8-2 record on the season, and they are looking to start region play really soon and be scary in Region 6. I want to dive in for a minute, Tom, to Seneca. Coach Carter has been, I think, one of the unsung heroes for the last many years at Seneca and what he's been able to do with that basketball team. But with the Bobcats, we mentioned last year, could they give Northwestern a scare? And for 3 games that they did. But I just don't know if they necessarily had the player that could, I don't want to say keep pace with Michaela Presser-Palmer, but at least keep them in the game offensively if Michaela went off. Now I think they have 3 of them. And when you look at the way Michaela plays, and we'll talk a lot about her, the Arizona commit, the fact that Hamill and Farrell are sitting there now as a senior and a junior for the Seneca team, I think you could really make an argument they have the better overall roster and the 2 inside players that could contend to beat the likes of Mercyhurst Prep and Northwestern this season.
You know, I'd love to see that. The Farrell girl is so good with her feet. She uses her body so well. She played a tough game. So I'd love to see that matchup, that they play such a good pick and roll game. They threw the ball into the post a lot. Some good step through moves, and they have a nice little guard. Gracie Kazorik is just a sophomore, and boy, she played very well today, scoring to the rim. She hit a couple really deep threes, and played, I thought, pretty good defense on Page a lot. So yeah, they got a kind of a recipe there where maybe they can give Northwestern a good run for the money. They're well coached. I remember Coach Carter from his student teaching days way back in Harbor Creek, probably 20 years ago now, but he does a great job with those girls, and they changed the defense up really well. I thought they did a good job tonight. They threw a little 2-2-1 zone and got the ball out of Page's hands to try to make other girls make plays. So they got some good schemes from their coaching staff, and they got some good players. So it'll be exciting to see where they end up.
And the advantage for Seneca is they're already sitting 3-0 in Region 3. They've already beaten Mercyhurst Prep once by a 9-point margin, but I think if anyone watched the game, it felt a lot more than that. They were up double digits at the end of the first quarter in a game that took place back in early December. But this is a Bobcat team now with size. And you mentioned, Tom, defensively, they can play a bit of a zone because they have the athleticism to be able to get back to the basket if someone gets behind them. And there's really not a player in the region besides MPP that's going to be able to do that. So in 3A, the battle is fascinating because you never count out Dan Perfetto and Mercyhurst Prep, though they've really struggled to start the season, though they've had a bit of a tough schedule. I think Eisenhower's played well above their weight, too. They're going to be another interesting team sitting at 6-2 in the season. And, of course, is MPP going to be the difference maker again this year? So for me tonight, and I circle back to what I was saying, I think realistically in Erie County, you have 4 teams. And that's not a slight on anybody else. Again, McDowell is Prep, McDowell, Erie. That's specifically Prep McDowell. That is a given. I understand. But if you're looking at smaller classifications, things of that matter, I think you go Fairview, Harbor Creek, Seneca, Northwestern. We're looking, I think, Tom, at a very similar storyline to last year. The big question that I'll have that I'm interested to see is, does it change or does it stay the same from D10?
Yeah, like we've talked about a lot tonight already. I think it's real important to see how those other players develop. We know what Paige Garrity is going to give us. We know what Michaela's going to give us night in and night out. But other players have to step up and make plays, especially when the defense puts so much focus on those players. So it's exciting that those girls get a chance, and we'll see what they make of it.
So let's jump into, and maybe I already prefaced this by listing the 4 teams that have been impressive to me, but we'll find some other ones. Let's go through the girls' side so far, Tom. We're about 10 games into the year. Some teams have played region games, some have not. When you look at the totality of the season, knowing that region play really steps up, which of the teams that you've seen have been the most impressive so far? Are there any that have stuck out to you besides the ones we've talked about? Give me your analysis as to what you think really the standout teams have been so far heading into 2026.
Well, it's hard to not talk about Cathedral Prep first, right? And we all know that it's kind of a different playing field with them, bringing girls from different parts of school districts. But boy, they got some really young girls in there that are really making a statement already. Leah Neese has had some big games for them as a freshman. Mia Washburn from General McLean area, who's made some really big games as well. And they have the girls that are back, obviously, right? That we don't want to forget about. Shauna Thrower and why can't I think of their
Matt Spano.
Spano as well, yeah. So again, you have those solid players that are going to be there, Spano and Thrower, and a great point guard, a senior point guard with the Orlando girl. So they're going to have a really tough matchup. Anybody that they play with, I would hate to run into that because they're so deep as well, which makes it hard to compete. With them. It's real exciting to see those younger girls because I've watched them over the last couple of years through travel basketball and whatnot. So it'll be really interesting to see how they come along. But they're super strong with them. McDowell, a lot of life in that program right now with Coach Klytek taking over.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how they go. They're going to be strong. They had a big win against Fairview, kind of a revenge game from last year that I believe went to overtime. That was a really good battle, big win for him starting this year in his program. So it'll be interesting to see how they come along as well.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. And again, I want to go back to the question that I had earlier. When I mentioned the Erie County teams that can make the furthest run in states, I say that essentially understanding that we already know Prep's going to make a run. So for those of you who maybe misinterpreted my question, I think Prep is already a given. They're going to be one of those teams. We were talking more so about, the 3 and 4A classifications there. But I touched on this team just a moment ago. And we've seen, when I worked in news, we saw their boys team sometimes make some runs and really compete in their classification for the boys side. But how about the Eisenhower girls so far that are sitting at 6-2? Their only losses are Seneca by 1, a game that was literally down to the very last second back in the middle of December. They lost the opener to a tough Corey team. They may have one of the best combinations in District 10 with Lainey Font, who's coming back for that final senior season. And I think what is the closest comparison to an Addie Beal type from Erie County in Clara Steinberg, and the fact that those two are averaging what they're averaging, they're sitting in a really good spot. I think with the way that Region 3 will play out, if they can even pick up 2 wins in total against Seneca, Northwestern, and Mercyhurst Prep out of the 6 they're going to play, I think that they could still really be in contention to have a really big run in their class, especially given the fact that there simply aren't that many teams in 3A, 7 to be exact. So they're going to have an opportunity to really make some noise in that classification. I like Eisenhower girls. And then I think you also have to look, too, at some of the other teams, Tom, that we really don't always hit on. Franklin girls have had a really good start to the season at 7-2. Harbor Creek is sitting at 6-1. And their defense is one of the best in District 10. So a lot of good competition, I think, on the girls' side of things. And maybe arguably, Tom, is that the deepest tournament we could potentially have. We said that a lot last year, right, about how deep the tournament could be. Maybe more of the same this year, depending on how these teams keep going throughout the month of January and February.
Yeah, a lot of competition with those girls teams. I know that Seneca Eisenhower game was either 1 or a 2-point game.
Yeah.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see as the season goes along how they handle the long season and who improves the most, because a lot of those younger players are going to improve a lot. So a team that we see right now might be completely different come the end, February basketball, which is the important time of the year.
Tell you what, man, it's been a good start to the season. Been a lot of fun games that we've seen. Teams that we knew were going to be good that have continued to be good, and others that have just jumped off the page with a couple of incredible players. But that's the girls' side. We're going to get to the boys' side in a second, but want to take a moment, of course, to thank our sponsor, Rebich Investments, here on the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. Brought to you by Rebich. They make financial guidance simple. And if you want more information, you can go to their website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can call their phone number during normal business hours at 814-734-3433. Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. Forgot to ask Tom how your Christmas was. I feel like in the midst of all the chaos, you had to have celebrated the holiday, right?
We certainly did. Yeah, we had a good Christmas at home here. My three girls and my son with my wife Jess, we really enjoyed the piece of no basketball hysteria with practices and stuff. So it was kind of nice. The fifth grade boys don't do a lot of practicing over Christmas break. And then my wife's actually from Jeromesville, Ohio, outside of Ashland. So we went to her family. So we made a trip on Sunday down to Columbus, and we got to see Ohio State and UCLA girls basketball play, which was really cool. It was a good game. You got to see Kiki Rice at point guard for UCLA, and then the big Laura Betts that's transferred in from Stanford. My daughter Maria was like, "Oh my God, she's 6'7", which is funny, but she really is 6'7". She's a big girl. They did a lot of pick and roll and some post stuff that we really like to watch. So that was a fun time to do that.
Ohio State's pretty. Is the women's team or the men's team good this year? I thought at least one of them was.
The women's team they only lost once, which was to UConn, so they're ranked 19th. But as you know, there's such a drop off after the top five.
Yeah.
One, right? I mean, UConn beat UCLA by 32, I believe, but they played really tough against UCLA, who's number 4 in the country. I mean, it was a 2-3 point game in the fourth quarter. I like the way they play. They play fast. They press. Because they're a little bit smaller than UCLA. So it was another contrast in styles there where UCLA was trying to slow it down and go inside and got it real well from three, so it kept them in the game.
Still struggling to fathom the whole we can't play games during this Christmas break rule. It's so weird in college and working for a university now, the fact that we have this mandated break, and I'm sitting here like, I'm used to high school the day after Christmas, right? I mean, I think if Fairview could play the holiday tournament on Christmas, they probably would choose to because that's the premier tournament. But it's just weird. It's been really, really weird to not have anything for the last week or so. But at least we're getting back into the swing of things. So let's swing over to the boys, Tom, and ask you the same question. Man, you're spoiled for choice on this. There is an obvious pick for who's been the most impressive team so far, but we're going to get to prep in just a few minutes. Survey the scene for me from your perspective. The teams that you think have been the most impressive. I think we're going to get a lot of the same faces here, but maybe I think there are going to be at least a couple that you look at and you think they're back, and ones that have been there before maybe have been out for the last couple of years and now they're back.
Yeah, well, I guess you have to start with Cathedral Prep, right? They're putting up big numbers on offense, which is exciting for the normal fan. Some people like defense and different types of basketball, so it depends on your style. But they're definitely putting up numbers. I'm interested to see how that does against other teams when they really try to battle that style. So we'll see how that works out. But they're playing really well, and I really like their team and their players last year. Right, you got Nando, who's back as a senior, solid point guard who can score on all three levels. He's a great leader. He distributes the ball really well. You got the Thompson kid, who I love the edge of him. He scores at all three levels as well. In Kyle Horton's boy, man, he can defend the heck out of the ball. I love his defense, but he's scoring as well too. Like he's a long range threat. So they got a lot of weapons, which makes them a very dangerous team. Right? Again, the Cathedral Prep depth. But there's some other teams that do that as well. And I'm anxious to see Erie High playing against some of these better teams. Their schedule was, it's tough for a 6A team around here to get a lot of big teams. So I know they got McDowell coming up on January 16th, and that's always a good benchmark for Erie to see how they line up to them, a team that shoots the three really well with McDowell. They got the Marsh boys that can shoot it. The Fasano kid, they got a lot of weapons on that team as well. So that's going to be a really good squad to see how they battle. And Kevin does a good job with them. But Erie's deep. There's still a few players that played for me Really love Charlie on that team, and they got the Wooford kid who came over from prep, the big kid Stewart, Joe Jones' son, is a really strong quality player. So they have a lot of weapons as well, and they're deep. So those teams are teams that you got to be really worried of. But they're really taking care of business of the local teams when they play them. Go down to Fairview. Fairview's very good. They have really good guard play. Another experienced team, right? They were really young last year. I can remember those guards when I was coaching. And they were, and each year they just get better and better with more experience underneath them. The Tyler Cavecchio kid is playing really strong inside. They got another kid, the Hennessy kid, that comes off the bench. So they're really deep as well. And Pat Flaherty does a heck of a job there. The motion offense that they run, and you overplay them and they get you in the back door. There's a lot of things that they do. So those teams, I think, are solid teams that we talk about every year, and I think they're all going to be back.
I'm with you. And I want to start in Region 7, Tom, because I think that's the most intriguing to me, specifically prep. You have been involved in basketball in District 10 much longer than I've been alive. And I want to propose this question to you. I say I'm going to put this out there, and I know this is probably an unfair question because we have had the offenses of the past with the Strong Vincents of the world. Prep's had a few of these. McDowell had a few of these. You guys, when you were coaching, had a few of these offenses. But is Prep on a trajectory to be the best offense we've seen in D10 in the 21st century? I know that's it's a loaded question, and maybe it's not a fair one. But if anything, what, besides the fact that they're returning, what has made them so good? They have the seniors, I get that. Nando's an incredible shooter. Michael Thompson's really hard to guard with his size. But where does this offense stack up in your mind when it comes to other great offenses that we've seen?
I don't want to say it's an unfair question, but there might be some blowback on my opinion. I don't know. I don't necessarily value an offense to be great because they score a lot of points.
Fair. Okay.
So I'm going to say that first, and that it's no disrespect to Coach Lynch or any of those players, because I love their team and I love what they're doing. They're definitely playing a different style of basketball. They're just trying to get more possessions with their defense, and they're trying to outscore teams. And I think we all know it's very similar to the style that Gannon University plays, right? Style that West Liberty first kind of started off with Coach Crick back in the day. So that style is gaining momentum because kids like to play in it, but it is getting away from a little bit more of the defensive aspect of it. Right? I'm not saying they don't play defense, but I think it's just different. It's a different style. So are there better offensive teams? Because I look at offense, if you're a great offensive team, it's how efficient you are. Right. And it's not always scoring the most points. It's scoring the points when you need them. So I'd be really interested in seeing Prep. I wish them all the success, but I want to see them against a team that slows the tempo down, that can handle that pressure, and how are they going to react when they have to play half-court defense? Not that those kids can't play it or the coach can't coach it, but I want to see them in those situations. I don't think we've seen that yet. So it'll be interesting to see how that falls out. But they have super talent on offense, and they're going to put up bigger numbers than everyone else. But in my opinion, Fairview's very efficient in their offense with Coach Flaherty, even though they're not probably putting up 80, 90 points during a game. So I think you're comparing apples and oranges a little bit. So it'd be unfair to your point to say that they're better than a lot of other offenses. Because I can remember back in the day, Cathedral Prep with Jed Ryan and what they did to really slow it down and get really deliberate scores, and they won state championships with that. And there's been several times that me and my circle of coaches have talked, and what do you think it would take for an Erie boys team to beat these Philadelphia teams at that high level? And we always thought that it would be real deliberate defense to not let them, turn the ball around on offense and to really take your time offensively to get great shots. I don't know if that's still the case, but I guess in my heart, I kind of believe that. So I'm anxious to see how this style goes because as a coach's aspect, I love to see the styles battle and see which one wins. So
I want to pick your brain on this now because this could be a conversation that we could take an hour on. So maybe we touch base more on it in an episode down the way in the future. But I see this this defense, this style be played every day at Gannon, right? I mean, Easton Bozzoli following Jordan Fee, this team, they do it better than almost anybody else in the country. I watched a clinic of the full court trap, aggressive press zone defense in the regional final last year when Gannon played West Liberty. And we saw two coaches that just absolutely had it nailed down to a T. Prep is obviously doing it. I've called a few McDowell games. They're doing it because they don't necessarily have the size, but they're quick as well. We can get into the history of how it came to be, but why, in your mind, do you see so many teams going to this now? Is it just a style thing that teams are catching on to, like the Wildcat in football, right? Miami starts it and everyone else is doing it. What's your take on why you think teams are starting to make this change to the way that they play it? And for those of you who don't know, we're talking defenses full court press all the time, where you have 4 or 5 guys in the front court area. As soon as you score the basketball, you're looking to create turnovers. Why are teams now at the high school level going to this when we've traditionally just seen it in college?
Well, I think number one, it's fun, right? Like who wouldn't want to play in that style where you're really getting after it? Everybody gets to play because you have to be much deeper, right? If you're going to play that level, in that speed, that tempo all the time, you got to be able to sub some players. And now again, maybe it's not as hard in high school because it's only 8-minute quarters, but it's a lot of fun. And guys get a lot of touches. There's a lot more points being scored. And I really think with modern day basketball, the players are so concerned with points. They want to get stats. That's so important. The NIL, social media, look what I did. And I'm not even trying to be negative with that, but that's kind of how our society has gone now. Like look at my highlights, look what I've done. And a style like that allows you to spread it to everyone, so more people are happy. And I know as a coach, and I'm sure there's a lot of coaches that agree with me, when your players are happy, it's a lot easier to coach, a lot easier to win, it's a lot easier to get on your players when everything's going well. So that style is fun to the players. And if you're recruiting me and saying, hey, we score 100 points a game and look how many people scored in double figures, I would want to be part of that. So I think that's alluring to a lot of the young players. It also relates to travel basketball, right? When you're only practicing a couple times a week for travel basketball, it's really easy to run that style because you don't have these in-depth offenses that you run with all these different options all the time. In college basketball is like that with the transfer portal. People are moving around all the time, so you don't get to develop in an offense and really work all those things. So is it a good thing, a bad thing? I'm not going to choose that, but I'm just going to say that that's the direction things are going. The game's kind of evolved that way. Kind of like the 3-pointer. Steph Curry he changed the landscape of basketball when he came in and made that shot look so easy. It's changed things. So good, bad, or indifferent, it's the direction things are going.
The other thing I think too, which makes it interesting for Erie County, and this is just for me coming from a bird's eye view perspective as someone who shot games to the floor during state playoff games and stuff like that, is Pittsburgh and Philadelphia teams I think have maybe caught on to this slightly earlier than Erie teams, but historically Erie County is a county of defensive basketball. And so when you see this from Prep specifically, when you see it from McDowell, now I remember back 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I suppose, when Gannon did this for the first time under Jordan Fee, and I was still at the TV station, and I remember coming and I was texting back and forth with Bob Shreve, who was in who was with Gannon for a few years, and he texted me. He said, "You better get here early, and you better watch out, and you better be on your feet, and you better be ready to shoot the heck out of the game." And it was so fast, it almost didn't feel like basketball to me. It felt like a totally different sport, and it almost felt as if I almost equivocated it to when you have a house with 2 or 3 kids. And it's one of those days where the kids are just running around the house and they're running amok and they're screaming and they're torturing everybody and they're trashing the rooms. And all you just hope is that at the end of the day, no one's heading to the hospital. That is literally what it looked like to me. It looked like an intentional car crash. And it worked. And I mean, it worked for Gannon. Of course, they scored 100 and something points in that game. And of course, it's worked for a lot of other teams since. But it's just such an interesting contrast of styles now because still, for the majority of Erie County, it is defensive basketball, right? And when we talk about the other teams, Tom, like in Region 6, Fairview, Harbor Creek, Girard, all three of those teams pride themselves on great defense. And when they get into the 4A playoffs, that's what it's going to be, right? How great defensively can we play? And can we limit teams to good shots? Similarly, with even the Oil City Franklin games a few years back, and it will be the same thing in the coming weeks when they play each other in Region 5 and in their classifications. It is a defensive-minded league, and now you go to Region 7, and McDowell and Prep are sitting there and they're playing the style, and I just think I think the question that I would love to have answered, and we'll put a pin on this. Tom, you can respond to me, and then we'll put a pin on this because we're going to do a whole nother episode on this. I've already decided as we're talking tonight because this is a great topic. But I wonder if it's going to become the normal or if it's going to become a one-off or a two-off because you have that personnel this year if you're Prep or McDowell, and so you play that way. Do you have any inkling as to whether you think this is the future, or is it more so these teams have the roster, so they're doing it, and the next few years it'll be back to more of a let's play the traditional style of defense? What's your take?
Well, I think if you're a good basketball coach, you put the system together that best serves the personnel that you have. Now, something like Gannon University or West Liberty, they're recruiting players for that type of style, but all of a sudden you get a six kid that's 300 pounds, he ain't going to play that style. And you might run some ball screen stuff. So I think personnel has a lot to do with it. Do I think that it's going to be the norm right now? I don't know if I'm right or not, but I'm going to say no, right? I'm going to look at Warren Moon with Haywood Jeffries and Hill and how they ran the run and shoot and how exciting that was, right? Or the Bills when they did the no huddle. Like there was a lot of different things that were effective. But I think the game catches up to those styles and they make it more difficult. And it seems like it always comes back to you got to have a strong defense and you got to go after these certain parts of the game. So I think it might come back to that. Maybe I'm wrong. Only time will tell. But like it always seems to here's something new, and I don't know how to attack it defensively. I need to see it a few times. My players have to get used to it. So we'll see how long-term this kind of stuff lasts. But I'll tell you what, it's exciting to watch. It's different, and it's brought a lot of excitement to fans locally at Gannon, and certainly, following Prep and McDowell, if they're doing that same type of thing.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it brings fans to games, no doubt. You see teams scoring in the hundreds in high school basketball, even college basketball, and they're going to come to games. But it is an interesting point. I agree with you. I think at the end of the day, defense still wins championships. I mean, I know we're comparing apples to oranges with sports, but I was at the Brown Stadium on Sunday, so I watched that defense just completely take out Rodgers and the offense. We'll talk about that a different day, Tom, because I had my rant on Monday. I'm sick and tired of this bull crap that I'm having to deal with and talk about on daily shows. But man, it is just so fascinating, and we'll see. Prep McDowell round one's going to be a lot of fun. Going to be a lot of fireworks, probably in the 80s and 90s for scoring. But yeah, that Region 7 is going to be a fun one. Erie again, 2 undefeated. I mean, they got a great team, Coach Pulliam. I mean, you know them very well. Like you said, a couple of the guys still on the team that you coached in the last couple of years. But yeah, Region 7 could be fun. Erie McDowell in Class 6A will be a lot of fun. And of course, Prep and 4A with all the chaos. Give me your early thoughts on Region 6, Tom, before we wrap this up here. Fairview, Harbor Creek, Girard are sitting there really, really all the top. I'll tell you what, I like a lot what the Huskies are doing. And I think JT Del Sandro coming back for that final year and the way that he can shoot the ball is really remarkable. You have 3 bona fide studs in that region that are leading their team between DeVecchio from Fairview. Of course, Kenny Godoy is senior for Girard, who I think is averaging something like 27, 28 points a game. And of course, JT, who's in his senior year and has been playing really, really well. Your early take on how you think Region 6 could play out and ultimately a region that's going to determine probably a 2 or 3 seed in Class 4A in the district tournament.
Well, I haven't got to see a lot of good, I don't want to say good basketball, but a lot of those good matchups with tip-off tournaments and stuff, region play not really coming in. that much. But I did get to see Harbor Creek and Fairview both play at the Fairview tip-off tournament, and both very well coached teams, very different style of play. If I talk to Coach Smock, he said, they make jokes and Fairview's going to run away with the region. Talk to Coach Flaherty, the region runs through Harbor Creek. We've been for a long time, so everybody wants to be the biggest sandbagger. But I think they both know that they have some special kids on their teams. And like basketball comes down to, you got 16, 17, 18-year-olds that have to make big plays at the end of the year. So it's going to come down to who makes the plays when it counts. But there's going to be some good battles in the playoffs. There's going to be some good battles in the region. I really like the depth of the Fairview squad. I think that's an advantage for them. But with those guards, Alessandro and I've seen Kenny working out. He works out with Keith Wallace, like my daughter does. So I see him all summer long, all spring. Puts in more work than I've seen. So you can't count anybody out. I've seen them face guard Kenny, and he's still putting up 30 points. And there's something to be said about that. When a team focuses on you defensively and you can still put points up, you're a heck of a player. So there's going to be some really good battles, and I hate to give favor to anyone, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, 4A is going to be a lot of fun again this year too, no doubt, with the way that those teams play. Great defenses in Region 6. Prep's offense is going to run rampant again in Region 7, and then they'll all converge in the 4A tournament when we get there in the next couple of months or so. Well, Tom, great convo tonight. Let's put a pin. Let's talk more about, in our next episode next week, more about the styles, if you will. And, of course, it's going to come at a good time because Prep McDowell is coming up in a few days' time. It'll be the first match between those two teams. Of course, Prep Erie, McDowell, Erie not far on the horizon as well. So we got a lot of good conversations to get to. But, man, it's great to see you again. I'm sorry it's been a while since you've been on the show, but basketball finally in full swing. You've got your hands full. I don't know how you have enough time, but kudos to you, man. That podcast setup's looking even better than it did last year.
I definitely enjoy this. Still talking about hoops and focusing on it. Things run through my mind. I love going and watching how coaches coach and their different styles and what they're trying to do. And I even forgot to bring up the Northeast boys, who had a great game against Fairview. They're going to be a very dangerous team as well. They got some good size inside with Willie, Big Willie Shunk. So it'll be interesting to see how this stuff comes out. I'm excited to talk more about it and see some good games, and maybe we can get some good talking points to debate on as well.
Hey, no doubt, man. We got a lot of fun stuff to cover in this season. Basketball never disappoints, and we get a few more months of it too. Great stuff. Coach K, can't wait to talk to you next week, man. Thanks again.
Peace out.
Tom Koval, always great joining us on the program and gracious with his time. So thanks again to him for being with us here on this Wednesday evening. Hey, to all of you, Happy New Year. Please be safe, whether you're out and about, whether you're enjoying it with family. We hope 2025 was as kind and wonderful to you as it was to us. We can't wait to be back with you for more episodes in 2026. Off the Record continues every Thursday night at 7 o'clock. We're here in the Gem City Sports Podcast every Wednesday at 8. A lot of high school hoops talk. We'll talk college as well. Everything local sports we'll get into as much as we can. And, of course, Rust Belt Rundown every single Monday at 7:30 through the Super Bowl. And stay tuned. Paul Adamczyk in the Draft Podcast almost getting set to return here for season number 2. Looking forward to that. So make sure to stay tuned for more information as we roll through the rest of the 2025-2026 sports season. That's it for us. We'll see all of you back here on Monday for the Rust Belt Rundown, Steelers and Ravens Week 18 reaction. Boy, that's going to be a fun one for Ravens fans, that is. Maybe we'll get Wayne Bradford back on the show. Take care, everybody. We'll see you all coming up.